Hey everybody, this is Greg-Petix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the Petixonian Institute of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to look at a recent acquisition to the Petixonian. A couple months ago I picked this up. Bogeyman number 3. Rory Hayes. Rory Hayes' great horror anthology comic. The first one was just him solo, but then he started getting collaborators. And this is probably the most I've ever paid for a single comic. I think I paid like $20. I talked him down from like 25 or 30, and even that I felt bad. But this comic is really worth it. Even just it's got this like heavy cardstock cover. It's a really well-made underground, slightly wider than your average comic. It's kind of not oversized, but it's definitely, the dimensions are a little different. But this is a great underground classic. I'm still trying to find Bogeyman 1 and 2, and I really want to find them. Some of the key issues that the Petixonian are missing, because we have almost all the key issues of the undergrounds, but Bogeyman 1 and 2 elude us. So this is from Company & Sons, the early underground publisher. We start off with a great cover by Jack Jackson, and he's drawing in the style of Rory Hayes. You probably wouldn't even guess this was Jack Jackson. And just some weird, creepy, horrifying image. So let's crack this open. We got a nice inside front cover by Rory Hayes. Rory Hayes was just a strange individual. He died very young. He was kind of like this man-child. He would draw these weird comics of like cute little teddy bears, but doing all kinds of depraved and horrifying acts to each other. But it almost looked like kids' comics if the kid was schizophrenic. And everyone who met him was just like, yeah, he was just this really weird little quiet guy. Really got into speed and LSD at the height of the hippie era. And his comics got weirder and weirder. And so this came out in 1970. Kind of the height of the underground comics boom. But as you can see, Rory Hayes is a very unique style. Nobody quite draws like him. Maybe some people would say, why would you want to draw like him? Because it's just a very idiosyncratic, crazy style. But man, look at the craft he does in here. Look at that shading in the background. How long did that take him? I don't think they make a zipatone for that. I think he drew that with a tiny little rapidograph or something. Nuts. And all these points, the pointillistic stuff. I mean, man, he was probably like freaking out on speed that night and stayed up all night doing all these little dots and lines. So the first story we have is Jay Lynch. Pretty much usually just does funny stuff, but Rory Hayes recruited him to be in this. And this is a very silly story. And so the Boogeyman is the horror host, just like at EC. You know, he introduces a lot of the stories. And it's almost like the underground artists who worked on this comic with Rory Hayes, almost like they were trying to be like Rory Hayes, and as far as just kind of a weird, almost stupidity. It's like really, some of the comics are just crazy and dumb. But I mean, it's really like looking in some guy's brain, like the id. They're kind of nutty, but there's something about them that's just fascinating. Like you're actually seeing the workings of a kind of nutty guy. And so this woman is at home, and this guy calls her up, and she has a lot of boyfriends. So at first she doesn't know who it is, but then she realizes it's some creepy guy because he's saying that I can see you. I can see the towel wrapped around you. And so obviously he's like some kind of stalking guy. And then she's lighting a cigarette, and he says, yeah, I can see you lighting that cigarette. So she's like, oh, you fucking creep, I'm going to call the cops. And he says, there's nothing the police can do, princess. He keeps calling her princess. And the second you hang up, I will have you for my own, and you will be my princess forever. So dumb. So he calls her again, and she rips the phone cord out of the wall so he can't call her back. And then she starts changing. This is so bizarre, this transformation here. And she turns into a giant princess phone. And it's so dumb. But I don't know. That's why I like reading undergrounds. They're just nuts. These guys are all tripping balls and just making up nutty shit. We have a nice pinup here. I assume this is a real serial killer. Hall of Infamy #1, Huey Lincoln Smith, alias the Scorpion. And I don't know if he spelled Scorpion wrong, if that's how the serial killers wrote it himself, or Simon Deitch here just doesn't know how to spell. But this is Kim Deitch's brother, Simon Deitch. He was a really good artist. Totally different style than Kim. But Kim Deitch obviously overshadowed him due to his output. But that's a really nice pinup. Then we have another one-pager from Spain, Rodriguez. And this, I don't know what the hell. This woman's just babbling about something. But the art is so good. I mean, this is just great cartooning. Spain usually didn't do this kind of caricature. His stuff was more or less realistic. But that's just a great face. And just the city, this horrible, dilapidated city he's drawing. Every little broken glass fragment. It's a really nice pinup. So here we have Last Hit. This is Rory Hayes at his nuttiest. And this woman is coming down at dawn, and her peaceful frame of mind is rapidly changing. So she takes another hit. She takes some speed to hopefully, keep the high going. And she just totally goes nuts. She begins to scream and scream and scream. And then these demons jump out of her head. And the speed demons crawl out of the hotel room window and wrap themselves around various tall buildings. And then they start screaming. And this maddening racket drives the city people insane. And they also start screaming until the sound gets so intense that it destroys everything. It's just like this horrible, nightmarish. This is like totally something like if you were a speed freak, you might fantasize about or have a nightmare about. This is just only Rory Hayes could write a story like this. Just kind of horrifying. But almost like as if a retarded teenager wrote and drew it. We have a nice one-page pinup from Rory Hayes here. A very, much more realistic drawing than he normally draws. Then we have a little one-pager from Simon Deitch again. And there's some kind of moochy hippie guy. He's saying to his drug dealer, dude, float me one more week. I'll pay you Friday. He's like, no worries, Benny. Here you go. And this guy's so tired of him mooching him, he gives him battery acid. And he's just like, gag. But once again, I really like Simon Deitch's art. I don't have much of his stuff. I knew, he was around there in the undergrounds. I'd always read about in articles about Kim Deitch. But I really like his style. It's good stuff. Here we have a little S. Clay Wilson one-pager. Let me make sure I'm getting this in the camera. And this one, once again, it's almost like everyone is almost being as silly as Rory Hayes or just weird. And this guy is this creepy guy who likes to go around and when women are asleep, he creeps in their bedroom and bites their tits. And here he's fantasizing about how nice it'll be. But then this creature shows up. Horrifying creature. It looks like something Wolverton would draw, but scarier. And her roommate comes in and says, "You're in the wrong bed, fool." And this guy creeps in, the pervert, and then the monster attacks him. So I don't get it. Apparently this monster is pretty easy to just say, "Hey, get out of that bed. Leave that woman alone." But then he totally moshes this guy. Look at that. That's a great panel. Okay, this is amazing. This is so weird. Rory Hayes jamming with Rick Griffin. The combination of their two styles is just nuts. I've never seen this before. I bought this comic, and This is just crazy. It's pretty much just like a psychedelic comic, you know? It doesn't really have a narrative. But just feast your eyes on this, like Rick Griffin and Rory Hayes. It's like the sacred and the profane, and the genius and the retard. So, yeah, look at this. This is fucking gorgeous shit. This is amazing. There's obviously more Rick Griffin here. There's obviously more Rory Hayes. But I don't know, like, if they were just, Rory Hayes was drawing his thing and Rick Griffin was drawing his, or if they, like, maybe Rick Griffin was inking this. I don't know. Like, I was trying to look it up on the internet if anyone had any information how they jammed on this comic. So here's the big story in this issue. And this is Rory Hayes' brother, Jeffrey. And, but it's very Rory Hayes. Like, they had similar sensibilities. So, we see this cute little teddy bear. He's, poling his small boat through the swamp. And he's a mad scientist type. He's like, I've had enough of trying these experiments. I've been trying forever. And he throws, like, these toxic chemicals in the swamp. And there's this cute little girl, the swamp girl, they call her. Look at her arms and hands. They're just like nothing. Just, it's so weird and fairy tale like. But I mean, once again, like his brother, look at the detail here. How much line work there is. So she tells her grandma, she's like, oh, I saw this thing. Look out the window. Maybe you'll see it too. You'll see the little bear dumping shit in the swamp. Sorry. Little swamp girl, though, bumps her grandmom, and she drops her dish rag in the water. And somehow the rag mixes with the weird chemicals in the swamp, and it becomes this creature, this monster. So it creeps into the house and kills Granny. And man, I love this art. It's like I guess they would call it naive art, but it's really scarier than like more accomplished art. So the girl sees her killing her granny, and she runs from the rag monster. Man, I like this art a lot. And you can totally tell, obviously, that this isn't, it's different than Rory Hayes. They have different styles, but they have the same kind of thematic concerns. Just these cutesy, almost looking like children's book stuff, but with these really horrifying situations going on. So the rag's chasing her through the swamp. She escapes her little house, and she sees a hunter in the forest, and she's like, please help me. And this hunter comes out, this little elephant hunter guy, and he shoots the rag, but the bullets don't seem to harm it. So they get in their truck, his truck, and they drive away as they escape. Now we cut away to this couple who they're having trying to have a second honeymoon, but it's kind of pathetic. They're just at a bar because they're broke, and they get in this big fight. And she walks off. He tries to console her, says, "Look, baby, I'm sorry." But then they see a commotion outside the police station, and they find out that the little swamp girl and the hunter made it to the town and told the cops everything. So now there's this big posse. Everyone in town's like, we're going to find that rag monster and kill it. So, man, just so interesting, this art. Just these little silhouettes. I love this panel. All of the posse going through the night with their torches. So, that mad scientist from the first page, the teddy bear looking guy, and he hears about this rag monster. He says, holy shit, it worked. All these experiments, I've been trying to create life. And right when I gave up, it actually worked. So this rag monster is just tearing up all the little houses in the swamp. And this guy, finds his rag monster and is all like, ha ha, you fatuous fools. No longer will you laugh at me. Who's laughing now? And, the rag monster doesn't hold any allegiance to this guy. So he just eats him. And then all the townspeople throw their torches at the rag monster, and the rag monster jumps in the swamp to extinguish the flames. And then later, the guy who was arguing with his wife earlier, he brought a camera. So he took a picture of the rag monster, and he's going to be able to sell it for a lot of money. And they're going to be able to go on a real second honeymoon. And it's a nice happy ending. She says, hey, can little swamp girl come with us? Or she says, you can come with us. The rag is dead. Long live Brillo pads. And then we have the Bogeyman closing out the story. You know, little horror host style. And, of course, he leaves a little ominous note that maybe the rag monster is just waiting until he gets hungry again. We have a beautiful inside back cover by Greg Irons. Such a great artist. And this does look different than Greg Irons' stuff, though. Once again, I think everyone was like, okay, we're going to be in Rory Hayes' comic. We're going to get kind of loosey-goosey and different than normal. Because this is just zany. Greg Irons usually drew a little differently than this. And then we have a nice back cover by Greg Irons as well. And it has some little lesson here. It's basically saying that, like, you know, you're worried about these comics, you know, messing up your kid's head. Well, if you really want to protect them from horror, keep them away from Walter Cronkite from the nightly news. Because back then, you know, the nightly news was showing gory footage of Vietnam, people dying, people burning themselves. And it really wasn't, it was R-rated, the news back then, as far as violence. But this is just beautifully drawn, this apparition, this death apparition coming out of the TV. Look at the shading on that. That is fucking gorgeous. And this great cartoony looking guy. Man, that's a nice back cover. But yeah, that's it. Bogeyman number 3. Man, I hope I could find number 1 and 2 for less than $20, but I doubt it. At this point, I'm willing to, as the curator of the Petixonian, I'm willing to spend a little more for stuff like this. Because these undergrounds are dying out, you know. How many of these got destroyed from some spilled bottled water or some hippie, you know, having an orgy on top of his comics and all this sweat and bodily fluids ruining them. So I figure these are pretty rare. It's maybe worth it to pony up every now and then. So there you go. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you next time at the Petixonian Institute of Comic Book Studies.